All right, welcome back to News Center. Thank you very much for staying with us. If you're joining us, good morning. And of course, our top story is what I've just highlighted. That sentencing that we're expecting today. It has been a long time coming. This case has been on since late 2015, and it comes to conclusion today. I'm sure you know Ruth Kamande. If not, she is a Miss Langata Women's Prison Beauty pageant. She won this title back in 2016, but she ended up in prison because of that crime that she committed. She stabbed her boyfriend 22 times. I have a number of guests, and I'll start with my colleague Dennis Onsarigo. I had introduced him earlier. He is investigative editor. It's great to see you, and thank you for coming to News Center.
Good to see you again, Betty.
All right, so this case has really been a subject of discussion here in the country for some time. But somebody would ask, like, since 2015, what has been happening? It has taken so long to come to a conclusive end.
Betty, we are currently working on this case as a crime and investigations desk. She'll be running on your popular crime TV series Case Files sometime in August this year. I guess the prosecution has been trying to prove its case, and it was only 2 weeks ago when Mrs. Kamande was put on her defense when the court ruled that she has a case to answer. So the prosecution has proved, I guess, beyond reasonable doubt that she has a case to answer. So our sentence is coming up. So that's why it has taken this long.
Right. So who are some of the people who are being, you know, who are a source of evidence for the court?
I think I'm not allowed to comment on a case that is before court of law, but as a matter of fact, I guess the pathologist who confirmed that this gentleman was indeed killed, because the law is blind. You can say you killed someone, but if there's no evidence in court that says indeed someone was confirmed dead, and that confirmation is done by a pathologist or a government body, then that kind of evidence cannot be admitted before a court of law. So that was done. And I guess one of the star witnesses was the landlord, who says that he saw the deceased trying to plead to be helped when this lady was stabbing him inside the house. I mean, that is one of the most key evidence there. And again, when it comes to Miss Kamande herself, the judge fell short of saying that you're malicious in your act, because the fact that you stabbed this person 22 times and not once you took your time to stab him several times, then it was premeditated. You wanted to kill him. So those are the key evidences, I guess, the judge might have relied on. I'm no lawyer, but from the cases that we've covered before, I think as much as she's a beauty pageant winner, the law is blind.
The law is blind.
The law will come down hard on her, or it can come down lenient on her. But I think she's a bit lucky because the Supreme Court has spared the death sentence. It's no longer constitutional, so she might be committed to life imprisonment.
Life imprisonment.
That is the least. That is, I think, the highest she can get. I don't know what the least she can get from today's ruling. Yes.
All right. So Dennis, stay with me. I want also to just talk to my guests. One is joining me from our City Center studio. That is Dr. Jane Kiari. She is a counseling psychologist, and we also have Dr. Lukoye Twoli, who's a psychiatrist and the dean of School of Medicine at the Moi University. I'll start with you, Dr. Jane Kiari. Just let's talk about what would lead somebody to stab another person 22 times. Is it a moment of madness? How would you describe that?
Betty, when you listen to this case of Ruth and many other cases that are happening in our society today, you realize it is sad. What is happening in our families today is actually quite sad. But listening and answering your question this morning, you realize for a person to reach to that level where Ruth and many others may have reached, this is a case of, probably expectations that have not been met in their marriage. It could be probably the foundations of this relationship maybe were not right. And for somebody to reach there, you realize they are coming from somewhere. In psychology, we say, every behavior is motivated. And every behavior is caused. So you can imagine she didn't just wake up one morning and just decided, I am going to stab my husband or my friend in this case. So this is a process. This is something, she must be coming from somewhere. There must have been probably expectations that were not met. You realize many people are getting into marriage today with very high expectations. Along the way, you get disappointed. Along the way, these expectations are not met. And of course, Betty, when foundations are not right, even in any relationship, with time, they get to be shaky. And that's why we are seeing some of these things. So in this case, it could have been unmet expectations. That's what I would say for now, Betty.
Right. Thank you for that. I'll come back to you, Dr. Ari. I also want to just bring in Dr. Lukoya Twoli. Thank you for joining us. He's joining us all the way from Eldoret. Thank you for your time. But still, even with what Dr. Jane has just mentioned, I mean, many of us, go through moments of anger, sometimes when the expectations are not met. But, hardly do you get to hear extremely many cases of people who actually go out to stab somebody who, probably they love 22 times. What is your take on this particular case?
I think it is fair to say that in a relationship, especially a marital relationship or in a love relationship, very intense emotions are involved. People bear themselves in ways that they would never bear themselves to anyone else. And therefore, the potential of getting badly hurt is higher in intimate relationships of that nature than in other casual relationships where you have acquaintances or friends. And therefore, without knowing exactly what had been happening in the life of this relationship, it would be unfair to say that this wouldn't happen. And I think when you find somebody who is in a relationship with another person, killing them, and repeatedly stabbing them like this, you can infer that at that moment, this person was probably blinded by rage. And it would be interesting to know the genesis and what caused this person to enter into a state of rage such that, they continue stabbing even after perhaps this person was dead. And I would think that, to me, this would be evidence that, it was a moment, as you said, a moment of madness, as they usually say, and that's what usually happens in events of this nature. But it is important to say that anything can happen in an intimate relationship, especially when things go wrong, and because of the intensity of the emotions. You can think about it this way, that if this person planned to kill her partner, she wouldn't need to stab him 22 times, as you say. And to me, I would be interested to find out the state of her mind at the time when this happened and the antecedent history, what was happening in their relationship. How had it mounted slowly, gradually, up to a point where, in a fit of rage, she would engage in behavior of that nature. But without this information, it is difficult to make any specific comments about this case, but one would generally say that in events of this nature, it is very intense emotions that are involved, and there's probably a long history of disagreement or a long history of conflict that has resulted in an event like this.
Thank you for that. Does it mean that, every human being has the potential to get to that level of anger and rage? Because this is really not the first time we've seen just a few days ago a husband who decided to chop off the wife's hand, and these are many stories that we keep reporting. So does it mean that every human being has a potential to get to that anger level?
Yeah, so you see, every human being has inside them an instinct for self-preservation. And when any human being is cornered or is in a state where they perceive danger and they perceive there's no way to escape from this danger, then they will lash out with whatever is available to them in order to preserve their own life and to protect themselves from whatever they perceive to be a threat. And therefore, not knowing what has driven her there, I think if somebody were to sit down and discuss with her what led to this, you might be surprised to learn that at that moment then, this person felt cornered, this person felt like they needed to protect themselves one way or another, and that this is the only way they could think about protecting themselves. So yes, almost any animal and human beings are animals as well. When you corner them and make them perceive you as a threat to their life, they will lash out in order to protect themselves, whether it's psychological perception or whether it is a real, actual event out there that is threatening their lives. Our self-preservation instinct kicks in, and we will struggle to protect ourselves.
Then it's coming to you. I mean, we're waiting for that special report that you'll be having. But what information do you have so far? Because what we know is that there was a text message that was seen, from a secret lover, and that is what led to that happening. But do we know of any other historical issues maybe that this couple actually had?
That was her defense before court of law. She said she was mad because of those text messages.
Yes,
and
yes.
again, there was a treatment card, apparently in the name of the boyfriend, indicating that he was undergoing some HIV treatment or something like that.
Oh.
So that could have been the reason why she was mad enough to stab him 22 times. But as I said, if she did it 22 times, then she wanted this person dead, okay?
Yeah.
But in her defense, she says, I had no intentions of killing him. That's why I regretted after I had stabbed him 22 times, I stabbed myself. Remember, she did stab herself.
Yes, yes.
And she was later taken to hospital. Will that stand before a court of law? I do not know. But the many instances we have had a chance of speaking to convicts at Naivasha Maximum Security Prison, at Shimolatewa, they say there's a line they cross. So when they're committing this act of killing someone, of strangling you, or beating you with a blunt object until you die, they cannot remember what exactly happened during those 10, 15 seconds.
Oh.
But they can remember they were enraged enough to do it. But for this lady, her case is a bit tricky, as it were. Because one, she has generated a lot of public interest.
Yeah.
She's in various stages of trying to paint a good picture of a remandee who is likely to be a convict. But from our past ruling, Justice Lady Lesit, I mean, she'll go down with her as far as the law is concerned. Maybe she might get the lesser charge of manslaughter if the murder was not intentional. But if, as it stands, when you look at the evidence, I'm not a lawyer, as I said before, the highest she can get is life imprisonment. The least she can get is manslaughter. And again, you remember there was a conference in court last week where the family members came, where she was saying she's remorseful for what she did, but the family members said, we want her convicted, we want her jailed, we want justice. So it is a balancing act. So what do we do? Do we give you less, but someone died here, or do we give you more because that is the law?
Right.
That's where it stands.
Interesting, interesting. And I also want to just bring in Dr. Jane Kiare. You are a counseling psychologist, and talking about that remorse. Is it remorse because it's the natural thing to feel, or it's a natural thing to communicate out there that I'm actually feeling bad for my actions, or what makes that remorse extremely genuine, that indeed you regret your actions, not because society expects you to do so, but because it comes from your inner self? You feel like, indeed, I did something wrong.
Betty, listening to what Dennis is saying and to what Ruth has come to, as she has come and she's saying now she's remorseful for what she has done. I want to imagine, I want to imagine she must have gone back to what she did, and after time of reflection, and maybe somebody may have taken her through counseling, through the process of what happened, she may have come to a point and realized probably what I did was wrong, and she could be genuine. She could be genuine. At times you may not be able to, you may not be able to gauge how genuine a person is. But I want to believe probably what she does after this will show how genuine probably has she been in her remorsefulness, because at times it gets to be very difficult for you to tell how genuine is somebody, because some of these things, they come from the person themselves. But I want to believe she must have reflected back, and she may have realized probably what she did is wrong. And like we said at the beginning, Betty, you realize for Ruth to have got to where she is now, she must have come through a process. I've heard Dennis say there was that message she got into her phone. There was that issue of unfaithfulness in her relationship. And you know, every time there's unfaithfulness in a relationship and trust is broken, bitterness, anger comes in. And you know, at the moment where anger reaches maximum, or anger just, the anger just manifests, there are times you do things even out of control. There are times you'll even lose control of your own action. But later on, as you reflect back, as you get to be convicted and convinced within you, as she reflects back probably to how she had related with her man, she may have reached to a point where she felt what I did was wrong. And she needs to be helped from now, where do I move on? How do I go on from here? She could be genuine, and probably time will tell how genuine is she, even in her remorsefulness.
Right, thank you for that. Dr. Lukoye, I mean, for human beings and for viewers who are watching right now, and, maybe they have been in a situation where they felt, they were pushed to the corner because, maybe a sister, a parent, a lover, a husband did something wrong. Is there a way to tell that you're getting to that level? And is there a way to protect yourself from, doing something like what Ruth did?
Yeah, I think at the core of it, the glue that cements relationships is communication. So if the parties in a relationship are able to openly communicate about their feelings, about the things that make them happy, about the things that make them unhappy, it is a safety valve that helps to get these things out. And when communication is not possible in the relationship and you feel like rage is building up, then communicating with someone else would still be a useful safety valve. So you could find a trusted relative who will listen and perhaps help you think through things before you make decisions. And at the end of the line then, it would be useful to seek out a professional when you feel like things are getting out of control, and speak with a mental health professional so that they can help you to navigate your feelings and find proper solutions out of the situation instead of doing things like what we're hearing about. So communication is key in my view, and for all human beings. When you are able to speak out your feelings, then you can see them out there and you can put them in proportion. But when you are unable to speak about them and they are growing inside, they often blind you. And there's this famous saying about making a mountain out of a molehill. When you are enraged, even small things that other people see as tiny things look very big to you. Things that wouldn't normally annoy you, when you are in a state of extreme psychological arousal, you would see them as if they are huge things, and your reaction, therefore, will seem disproportionate to an observer, but it will seem perfectly normal for you in that particular state. So the ability to communicate about your feelings helps to reduce the chances that you may react in a manner that everybody else would look at and say that this is disproportionate. So this is my advice, that if you're in a relationship and the relationship doesn't seem to be working, or somebody is hurting in that relationship and they're unable to communicate within the relationship, that they find another person or a mental health professional to help them communicate their feelings and navigate their way through these feelings to find a solution that is proportionate and a solution that is useful to both parties in the relationship.
Right, but also in the same breath, do you think, there's this African thing about, going to a counselor that is almost like taboo. You feel like, especially as a man, you should be able to, deal with your issues, silently. But do you think that slowly by slowly, Kenyans are accepting the fact that maybe they need to see, a counselor like Dr. Jane Kiarie, who we're speaking to, and seek that help and just confide, in someone that this is what is happening?
Yeah, so you will find that there have been those stereotypes, but I think over the years, things are improving and people are recognizing the useful place that mental health professionals, including counselors, psychologists, psychiatrists, play in society. And I think sometimes it's a matter of people not having proper information or not knowing what this person can help them with. To be honest, people who seek mental health support come out stronger and are better able to navigate their lives and to navigate their professional life, their relationships better than people who keep feelings inside and allow those feelings to fester, and it hurts them. It's almost like a wound. When you have a wound on your body and you don't attend to it, over time it will get infected, it will get worse, and you might have to amputate a limb. The same way, when you have psychological pain, psychological injuries, and you let them fester without attending to them through the help of mental health professionals, then it would fester, it would worsen over time, and it can result in you doing things that you come to regret later. So society is beginning to understand and to appreciate the role that mental health professionals play, and I think this is a good thing. And any society, any country that wants to prosper in any other area must ensure that the population is mentally healthy. So we must invest in mental health services. We must invest at the workplace in mental health services, counseling services. We must have them in the community, at health facilities, so that people feel free to walk into a room and speak to someone who would be understanding and who would help them to understand their own feelings in order that they begin making decisions that are rational. I think it is time for us to destigmatize these services and to understand that not everybody who seeks mental health services is necessarily mad, as people would put it, but would be a normal person who is having a bit of trouble coping with things in their life, in their relationships, seeking a more adaptive way of dealing with those stresses and strains of life.
Tari, thank you for that. All right, Dennis, you have dealt with a number of, actually too many convicts. What is awaiting Ruth Kamande if indeed she gets a sentence equitable to life imprisonment?
Well, it's a new life. It will be a totally new life for her in prison. But shock of shocks, things have really improved in Kenya's correctional facilities. She'll have a chance of doing vocational training. She'll have a chance of taking part in learning if she wants to. She'll have a chance of pursuing her beauty pageant to another level. Those things will keep you going in prison. But you know, there's nothing good as freedom. As much as you don't have money, but as long as you're freedom, there's nothing good as that. But I think she'll have a chance. And she has a chance also to appeal against her sentence. If that appeal is dismissed, then she has a chance of going to the Supreme Court. If the Supreme Court says no, then now she'll be at the mercy of the president. So there's a power of mercy advisory committee that is in place. The Commissioner of Prisons sits on that advisory as a secretary. So he's the one who brings the names of convicts who have gone through rehabilitation. So if she gets to a status in prison called a trustee, she'll not be wearing the normal prison attire that you see that is striped like a zebra. She'll be in a blue uniform. But that will take 4, 5, 6 years.
What does a trustee mean?
A trustee means you can be trusted to take care of a block. You can be trusted with the kitchen. You can be trusted with the library. The very few things you can do in prison, Betty. And I mean, as long as you're in prison, it's not a very nice place to be in. But again, they are no longer security maximum prisons. They're trying to model them in a way, trying to say these are correctional facilities. I think the biggest challenge will be, will society accept her when she leaves prison at the end of the day? That is the biggest question, yes. But I will agree with Dr. Kidogo when he's saying that people need to communicate. But I also believe from my own school of thought that every human being is mad. Okay.
Really?
Yes. The only thing that keeps us sane are the laws. If there were no laws in this world, then we'll go for each other. We'll have killed each other. We're just animals.
Wait, what?
Pure animals.
That's very, okay.
Mad animals,
I'll get the sentiments of Dr. on that. But also, you said that you're preparing something for case files with regard to this story. What can people expect from it?
I had a chance of speaking to Kamande, I think a month ago, when she said, give me some time. Let me see how my case pans out in court. Then I can have a chat with you. She promised to give me an interview. I know she will give me an interview at the end of the day. So we are trying to not only tell her story. Sometimes the law is a bit blind, as I said. The law cannot give you a chance to say what you want to say because you are represented by legal counsel. So when you're given a chance to explain yourself, somehow maybe society will get to understand why you did what you did. And some of the people you have had a chance of speaking to have left prison. I think 60% of the convicts we have interviewed on our show who have confessed to committing what they did, they're out there. This Sunday we have a big story of a convict who was in prison for 27 years. He was arrested when he was on 25. He left when he was 55.
Wow.
He's out there after we did his story on case file. So there's a chance for people to understand why you did what you did. As I said, we're all mad people.
Yeah.
Okay. And sometimes we're pushed to the wall to do things that we never expected to do.
That we never expected.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Dennis Onsarigo. He is our investigative editor, and he has that fantastic piece that he will be, of course, preparing for us here on KTN News on Case Files. Before we close, let me just get the final sentiments of my guests. Dr. Jane, I'll start with you. And, of course, there's the other side of the story, the family of Farid Mohammed, the victim, you know, in this particular instance. You know, how can they deal with this? It has been quite a number of years, almost 3 years since it happened. But, you know, how do you deal with somebody, with a victim, a loved one who becomes a victim of such an incident or accident or event?
Betty, I would say it is very, very important for the person to seek counseling. And like Dr. Ali has said on the other side, it is very, very important for us to seek, to consult other people who've been through this life. And I would want to say, especially to our young people, as they get into relationships, let's seek counseling. I'm happy these services are available right in our churches. A lot of premarital counseling is being done today. A lot of post-marital counseling is being done today, just to help us get to know what is it that we expect in our relationships. And the times when you start seeing even these red lights, even in your relationship, don't just sit there and wait, for this small hill, to become a big mountain. Consult with the people in the society, consult with your pastor, consult with a counselor, consult with your mentor. Let them know what is happening so that you are helped even to deal with anger. Because like we said, anger, even the way it builds up, it is a process. It is a process. So before it gets to a point where we can now turn against each other, let's seek counseling. Let's be taken through. What do we do when expectations are not met? Because it's normal. Two people in a relationship, once in a while, there will be disagreement. Remember, you're bringing two people who, people who are not brought up together, different people with different opinions. So as people come together, these issues will arise. But the question is, as they come to our relationships, as they come to our families, how do we deal with them? And Betty, you realize, for us to be where we are, even in our professionals or even in our careers, we have gone through a lot of training. Unfortunately, very few of us are even seeking training, even on how to manage our relationships, how to manage even our families. We need to seek a lot of training. There's a lot of training that is going on. Don't just get married, don't just get into a relationship and just sit and feel like I have arrived. We need to work on this relationship. We need to get training. We need to be trained on anger management. How do we manage our anger? We need to be trained on communication, like Dr. Ali was saying, so that we can be able to move from one level of communication to another. Otherwise, if we don't seek these, things will come. We will not be able to, will not know how to handle them. But I'm happy today that these services are available. Please, let's seek them so that we don't continue to have these homicides we are seeing in our families and in our society today, where people that loved one another, all of a sudden, they are turning against each other.
All right.
There is a solution. Let's seek counseling.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. Speaking passionately there, Dr. Jane Kiari. She's a counseling psychologist, also just commenting on this issue. Finally, I'd like to hear the final thoughts of Dr. Lukoye Atwoli. And Dennis mentioned something very interesting, and I want you to talk about that maybe briefly that every human being is mad. Is that what you said, Dennis?
Yes, that's what I said, yes.
That every human being is mad. It's
Every
because
human
we
being,
have
yes.
laws.
Yes.
But then how do we protect ourselves, from, the madness, Daktari?
Yeah. So no, I've heard it said, of course, that every human being is mad. It's just a degree that matters. So I think that is a statement that is often made in jest. But in reality, the truth of the matter is that, as I said earlier, everybody is incapable of irrational behavior. If that is what that statement means, then yes, everybody is incapable of irrational behavior depending on the circumstances. Everybody has a coping threshold beyond which, if you push them, then they will behave in a manner that you did not expect. And therefore, in order to prevent this, society has set up structures and systems and morals and laws and so on to try and ensure that everybody behaves within a certain parameter and that they don't go outside those parameters. And so, yes, everybody, pushed to the wall and with the appropriate tools, everybody is capable of killing, everybody is capable of harming other people if they are pushed to the wall and they start operating beyond their normal capacity for coping. As I said earlier, in order to prevent this, the most important thing is that we must invest, of course, in our mental health infrastructure and have facilities available for people to go and decompress, so to speak. Somebody who has been under a lot of pressure in their relationship, having an outlet where they can go and talk about this, talk about their feelings, would be very useful in reducing these kinds of domestic violence. Having facilities for people who feel mentally unwell, which is, you have crossed the threshold from just normal daily stress, normal daily problems, and you are moving into an area of mental illness. Having facilities available for you to go there early, to be diagnosed early, and to be initiated on some form of treatment or other would be important, in my view, in reducing these kinds of violence as well.
Right.
And so we have to proactively think about every policy in health, in education, in security. How does that affect the mental health of our people? When we raise taxes, how does that affect the mental health of our people? When we have, state-sponsored violence, how does that affect the mental health of our people? And how will they react when they feel like they're pushed to the corner and they have no other outlet? So this is things that don't happen accidentally. There are things that we have to consciously think about them and plan for them and invest in them in order to have a healthier society where you will not be having cases such as this of domestic violence and of violence in our streets and in our institutions.
All right. Thank you very much for finishing that off for us. That's Dr. Lukoya Atwoli. He's a psychiatrist and also the Dean of the School of Medicine at the Moi University. Thank you very much to all my guests for their time. Dennis Onsarigo will be looking out for that case files episode. Thank you for your time also. All right. So we want to also just get an update from my colleague Francis Ontomo. Remember that he is currently following up on what's happening at the Milimani Law Courts, where that sentencing is going to take place today.